and bring us back into a moment. It's gorgeous. I mean,
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. I'm Jacob. I am here with Jackson, and I'm delighted to welcome everybody to the second week of our themed month. Part of the history of No Script, something we've done every season, something that we love. This season, we are looking at 4 plays by... It's hard to understate this phrase, the great Paula Vogel. It's almost like To Be or Not to Be, right? Where you can emphasize any word. You could say the great Paula Vogel. You could say the great Paula Vogel. Or you could say the great Paula Vogel.
Rapidly turning into an acting exercise. Absolutely exciting to be kind of dwelling in 4 awesome plays this month by Paula Vogel. Excited to have the chance to kind of turn to some of these plays that are just like hallmarks, really, well known for what they do for theater, but also how they show off the strengths of theater and tell stories really interestingly. So exciting to have this kind of broader conversation across these 4 plays. And there will be a little bit of kind of like tendrils of connection between especially these first 2 plays that we'll have had talked about by the end of this podcast.
Well, yeah, and Paula Vogel, what she is doing in the level of like bold theatrical storytelling is just incredible. It feels like every Paula Vogel play I read, and this one was a new one to me. I've read almost all of her plays, but I'd not checked this one out, in part because of my aversion to Christmas plays. And so I just had never checked this one out, and I should have. That was a fault by me, because I should have expected that this was nothing like what it was suggested.
Right.
It was nothing like what you expect. Every Paula Vogel play I read or see, it feels like I have this experience where it's like, I'm going to be thinking about this play for a long time. Like it's tendrils into... I mean, listen, I've been doing theater for a long time. And yet you pick up a Paula Vogel play, and again, you just have the experience of like, I don't know that I realized that we could do that.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
It's just, the material is just so incredible. And this play is so remarkable in its form, in the moments that it imagines, in some of the... I mean, one of the things that's true about this play, it is so wildly specific.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so specific about this family, this particular family, with this particular ethnic religious heritage, with this particular lived experience, with this particular path. And yet it is... I mean, I feel like I'm part of it, even though I don't really have much shared lived experience with it. I mean, it just, I don't know, man. To read a Paula Vogel play is just to have your brain exploded.
Yeah, and to like get so like welcomed into that particular
a totally new world.
Yeah, yep, and to like and to kind of notice the importance of that world, of how like important, like sort of a mundane, not really mundane, I guess. I'm gonna say a kind of a mundane drive to Christmas dinner is filled with
really
magic.
Until the last moment. Well, and I guess there's principles of dramatic storytelling, of all storytelling, where it's like, what's different about today?
Yeah,
right. I think a friend of ours has called that the Passover principle as a way to name that question. What's different about today, right? And that obviously applies to this play. This is a Christmas play. It involves 2 Christmas traditions of a family, and then they are different. Something different happens this Christmas that locks in this event into the memories of the children of this family. And you think you know what's different, and then you think you know what's different,
Right.
and then you realize the thing that was really different at the end. A lot of the reviewers have talked about this play as religious, in part in its source, in its material, and its content. There's religious discussion throughout this script, but also in its affect, its deployment, its relationship with the audience. The end, especially, is a. I mean, again, I haven't seen it. I've now looked at, I mean, maybe hundreds of production photos because it just fascinated me. I've watched many videos, but all I've really done is read it. And even for reading it, the end, when those children, and I don't want to say more than children right now, although I think we both know what we mean, link arms
Mm-hmm.
in the car at the end of the play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's spiritual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this kind of thin space. This play has a lot of moments that are like, oh, there's like something holy happening here, or something metaphysical happening here.
Breath before they go into that final scene. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yep. There's like a couple degrees of fourth wall breaking that happen, and one of them in particular goes one more further than the other ones do, and which is really impactful. And yeah.
And you might even just say like there's no fourth wall,
and then there's like a really personal no fourth wall moment.
And listen, I am wildly fond of narrative theater. That's my home base as a storyteller, as a director, as a playwright, really as an actor even. That kind of direct address, as Paula Vogel says in the foreword of this play, that presentational rather than representational style is my jam. And, as I come back to Paula Vogel time and time again, you just sort of realize this Paula Vogel's probably why, because this is what she does so well. I mean, just better than anybody, I think. This a theater that is part of the audience's the audience being present is part of the thing.
Yeah, integrally important for the thing to happen.
Yes.
And continues to nod. Excited for the conversation about the long Christmas ride home today. Excited to kind of continue to just glow about it as we jump into the conversation further.
Yeah, this episode is going to be real nerding out.
Yeah, real.
Just a forewarning. If you're looking for critical analysis, this is not the episode for you.
Already probably not the podcast for you, and also
probably true. We default towards celebration rather than criticism. Just as a forewarning, all we're gonna do in this episode is gush wildly.
Yeah, for sure. So get ready for that. Get excited for that. As we make our way towards that discussion, though, I want to say thank you to all of our patrons who make this show possible. Thank you to all the patrons at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast for making sure that we get to do cool things like talk about Paula Vogel's plays for a month, like having themed months and special guest episodes, for making sure that the season is possible just on a default. We love getting to do this show. We love getting to have conversations around theater's best scripts, and the patrons make it possible. We just wouldn't be able to do the show in the way that we do it without the help of the patrons. So thank you all so much for being patrons of the show. If you are looking for a way to help out the show or just get involved with the show in another new way, you can head on over to patreon.com/noscriptpodcast. You'll find a number of different tiers of patronship. The lowest one is just $1, $12 over the course of the year, and you get access to things like patron-only posts and some discussion that's going on over there, as well as other tiers for you to look at as well. Thanks to all of our patrons who have already decided to do so, and if you are looking for a way to get involved in No Script, we'll see you over on patreon.com/noscriptpodcast.
And now, back to the script.
Here we go.
The Long Christmas Ride Home owes much, including some of its title, to the legendary Thornton Wilder. And of all the sort of legacy American playwrights, it's certainly my lean has always been towards Thornton Wilder, and certainly the playwrights that I deeply love and work with all probably, associate back in their lineage, in their storytelling lineage, to Thornton Wilder in some way. And so this podcast probably has a bent towards that area more than maybe other theater podcasts. But you're going to hear a lot about Thornton Wilder across the, what season are we in? 16, 13,
Yeah.
15? I don't know.
Yep.
Across all those seasons, right? And I say that only because, 3 episodes ago, we did a whole thing about another play about a car ride that owes its, sort of lineage to Thornton Wilder's storytelling mechanisms.
For sure.
We're back again, folks.
We're back in the building again.
We're back. This play, to be specific about it, in the notes in the foreword, Paula Vogel says, basically, I'm just going to quote now, in terms of production style, I'd appreciate it if directors would read the one-act plays of Thornton Wilder for guidance.
It's right there.
So listen, that's one thing I've truly never seen before. I've read a lot of plays. I've never seen a playwright just be like, can you just go read this other play in order to understand what's going on in this one? It's important that you just go check out. I've never seen that before. That's, and Paula Vogel certainly has the institutional heft to do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So, great. One of them she references is The Happy Journey to Trenton and Camden, which I believe is another play that has a car ride at its heart. And so there obviously that's going to owe some to what's going on. Obviously, Emily Feldman was pulling on that some in The Best We Could, too, which we referenced, again, I think 3 or 4 episodes ago. But then there's also another one listed, The Long Christmas Dinner, which, of course, now that is one of the title references to this play, The Long Christmas Ride Home. This owes quite a bit to Thornton Wilder and quite a bit to Bunraku theater mechanism, the Japanese poetry theater style. Japanese theater traditions have a lot of kind of form and structure to them, things that happen, ritual every time, spots in which new stories are dropped but have the same essential mechanistic structure. And Buraku poetry and theater and puppetry stylings is one of those. And so Paula Vogel says this play is a fusion of a one-act play. Again, that's a Thornton Wilder thing. Those are all one-act plays. And Bunraku puppetry theater techniques, and I think this is important for what she has and is doing, she specifically says straight out, this is the first sentence of the script notes, more importantly, of one Westerner's misunderstanding of Bunraku. I don't think it is straight. I mean, I'm no expert on Japanese theater traditions or on Bunraku puppetry storytelling or really on puppetry storytelling at all. That's not really my area. But I do think it would be fair to say, while this play shares a lot with what the Wikipedia or Google summary of Bunraku puppetry, sorry, I keep saying poetry instead, Bunraku puppetry says it is, probably it has some fairly important departures that trouble those waters some. So I think Paula Vogel seems to say this is a play inspired by, right? And that is what is going to come of sort of this storytelling tradition. This play had its world premiere in 2003 at Trinity Rep in Rhode Island. This was a co-production between Trinity Rep and the Long Wharf Theater in Connecticut. The Long Wharf side of that production happened in 2004. In between, there's a production in the Vineyard Theater in New York City in 2003. Some of these productions, as I go through, their timing is interesting because many of them are produced in November, December. Because this is a play that has, as its title, The Long Christmas Ride Home. It is a play that takes place on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. This is a Christmas play by those definitions. It's also a Christmas play by the kind of affective resonance of Christmas plays, which is that they often have some kind of higher thing happening. I hesitate to say supernatural, but their Christmas plays often have a kind of larger than regular life thing Of course, in religious versions of Christmas plays, there's literally going to be angels, and there's going to be that, that kind of material. But even a play like, A Christmas Carol, right, has these ghosts of Christmas past and present, future that transport Scrooge throughout his memory. And that is that kind of idea that, like, in Christmas time, we see past and through regular life into some higher plane of existence is a common feature of Christmas plays. And that you see that in this play some too. All that to say, she provides a very interesting note about this, which is that, and let me try to find it here. The note is about when the play should be produced, which again, truly something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
A playwright included in the script notes, hey, here's when you should be producing this play. Fascinating.
Yeah.
She says, I've read that no Japanese theatrical styling of no drama. She says, I've read that no plays are always presented in the season they represent, summer, spring, fall, etc. I suggest that this play be produced in January, in October, in any month except December, although we played in a December blizzard in New York. The before and the aftermath of the Christmas season, I believe, is how that sentence would finish. So Paula Vogel is suggesting don't do this play at Christmas. That's interesting. And also, I got to tell you, advice that seems to have been mostly discarded by the vast majority of these productions. This is just me guessing, not me trying to imply that I know what Paula Vogel was thinking. But my guess would be that is because... So here's a title of a review by Chris Jones for the Chicago Tribune. The review: Long Christmas Ride Home, the saddest holiday show in town. So my guess is that part of that suggestion from Paula Vogel is because as a Christmas play, the thing that this play is missing is like a kind of hopeful spirit of humanity or something like that. This is a fairly hard play in its subject matter, in the life of these people, which is fairly hard. This play, as we talked about last week, and many of Paula Vogel's play, contains an explicit staging of her brother, who we know from our conversation last week and from previous conversations about Paula Vogel, died of AIDS. And that subject matter, that kind of life plot point, appears again in this play. This is a play about parents who mistreat each other. This is a play about the central piece of the play is the father hitting the mother in their car as they drive home from Christmas dinner. This is a play that includes racial slurs. So it's got hard material about a hard life. Not very Christmassy,
right?
Or at least not what you expect.
Or maybe very Christmassy.
Or maybe very Christmassy. Yeah. And that's an interesting point for sure. So a lot of these productions do take place in November, December, despite the explicit suggestion to the contrary. The Synchronicity Theater in 2005, in Evanston, the Next Theater in 2005, had a production at the Magic Theater in San Francisco. The director of that production was the original puppet designer for the world premiere show. Interesting that she, or they fell so passionately about their work as the puppeteer on the show, they go on to direct their own production in San Francisco. The Studio Theater in D.C. in December 2006. The Divisionary Theater in San Francisco in 2007 in collaboration with the Puppet Theater of San Diego. Theater Vertigo in 2008, which is in Portland. In Philadelphia, the Azuka Theater in 2009. In Albuquerque, the Desert Rose Playhouse in 2011. Theater Tribe did the LA premiere in 2013. The Chicago premiere was at the Straw Dog Theater in 2015. Many universities have produced this. I did not write them all down. There were many. Places like Miami University in 2016, CU Boulder in 2017, Colorado College in Colorado Springs in 2018, Austin Community College in just this past year, spring 2025. So many. A company called the Strand Theater in Baltimore just produced it in December 2025.
Hey. Yes, so excited for the conversation. I wish I had made it to that 2025 version, because this is a play that is so seen, right? Like, there's so many elements of this play that are beautiful, that are magical. We've already sort of begun to talk about the fact that there are puppets in this play. There's puppets in this play. And so there's all sorts of elements that are like beautiful, and also it reads so well. So excited to kind of jump into that.
It really does. It's a great read. And that's true, I think, of a lot of Paula Vogel plays. They're great pieces of literature, and they inspire. If you're looking just to look at great production photos, just look at production
Yeah.
photos of Paula Vogel's play.
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know that I could articulate how she accomplishes that so effectively. Or maybe it's just by virtue of, her productions are done at such a high level all over the world. But production photos of Paula Vogel's plays, almost all of them, just make me gasp.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just incredible visual things.
With so many like unique things going on.
Yeah.
Like
before the conversation this morning, I texted you a picture of a production photo because it was just out. It just made me gasp as I looked at it. I don't think I've ever done that before in the history of this podcast. Texted you a production photo just because I was doing my research, and this one was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of gorgeous stuff. So I'm gonna try to summarize this here real quick. I'm gonna see how many rabbit trails I end up going down, because there's so many little things to notice in each of these scenes as we go. But this play takes place on the road to Christmas, to a Christmas gathering that this family is going to. This family is made up of 3 kiddos. We've got Stephen, we've got Rebecca, and we've got Claire. Stephen has the first line in the play, so he gets the kind of first credit in the
ghost of Stephen has the first line of the play.
That's true.
What does that mean exactly? I don't really know. It doesn't really tell us what that means.
Yep. It's true. But the order of the siblings, though, goes Rebecca is the oldest, Stephen in the middle, and Claire is the youngest. Mom and Dad are also in the car. They're on the way there, and it's like a blizzard snowstorm that they're heading to. Back when you put chains on your SUV or your minivan, this is the sort of storm they're going through on the way to Christmas time.
There's a great stage direction, and I don't know that it would really read to contemporary audiences anymore, because chains are just not that common anymore, as you said. But the stage direction called for is that as they're driving, the sound of the chains on the tires ends up like making a Christmas tune.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Like that's poetry.
Absolutely. Like the jingle of bells, but it's actually chains.
Chains and use no time. I mean, that's like 3-dimensional poetry or auditory poet. I don't know. That's just even the little thing like that I don't know that you would do anymore in a contemporary production, because I don't know that audiences would quite know what it is.
Yeah.
But like for what it was in 2003, incredible.
Yeah, evokes both Jingle Bells and Marley and Marley. Okay, so rabbit trail number 1 down. So we've got
This is going to take the whole rest of the episode.
The whole first chunk of the play, really all the way through this first car ride, it's other than the ghost of Stephen giving us the first line of the play, only 2 characters have lines in this play. Man and woman are their character names. They're the narrators, and they play a number of roles throughout the play, most notably the father and mother of this family, but they'll also play the grandparents a little further down the line as well.
Here's what Paula Vogel says about these narrators, who are, I guess, the leads. I mean, they certainly have the most lines in the play. As you say, for the first 2/3, they're really the only speaking characters other than, I guess, the minister. But they play the lines of all the other characters. This is what Paula Vogel says of them. 1 man, 1 woman. Age is not important. That's an interesting note, honestly. That's an interesting note. She says, what matters is the sound of their voices, rich, sonorous voices, able to rise from a hush to a crescendo, capable of playing all genders, all ages. The sound of snow. We could listen to them all night.
Yeah, that kind of like classic motif of the storyteller, right? Like someone that you could, that just sitting in a circle listening to them tell something is worth the time spent on it. And they tell us this story of them driving through the night and the various tensions that this family is going through. Each of them are in this moment of chrysalis. That's going to be important later. They're kind of this moment of like change and wondering about what change is needed. The husband is a serial philanderer. And so he's been regularly unfaithful, and so the husband and wife are kind of in various degrees of like wondering about whether or not each other knows something. The husband is kind of longing for this other woman that he's not with, Sheila, and the wife is kind of wondering around his unfaithfulness, but also around what she could maybe do. Maybe she could find a lover as well. And what ways can she get him to kind of find a way to tamp down on this affair that he's having. Then the three siblings are in the backseat as well. I'm going to pause before I talk about them, because the three siblings are in fact acted by actors. However, they're also acted by puppets. Now, these puppets are called to be kind of large puppets, kind of near child size puppets, that are being enacted by the actors who will eventually play the adult versions of these characters.
The only thing I would say is that I think they could be large,
yeah.
child-sized puppets. They certainly are not always. As you look at many production photos, there's a fabulous one. I'm sorry that I can't remember the director or the where it was, but I should have been able to reference that. But they do the whole thing with shadow puppets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different, and I've seen production photos where they're like Avenue Q style, sort of like forearm puppets. So you could do a lot. She says the director must decide what type of puppets represent these children. The puppets may be in the style of Bunraku, almost life-size children. Other styles of puppets are possible.
Yeah. But regardless, these puppets are in the kind of in the mode of children in the back seat, run by. It'd be interesting to kind of know how many actors you have playing these puppets. In Bunraku Theater, there's 3 actors running the puppets, so there's all sorts of ways this can look. We won't dwell too long on that. We'll dwell on that later. Anyway, they are in the back seat as puppets, kind of going through their own moments. Stephen is very car sick, and he's trying to survive this rough ride through the snowstorm, while he's also kind of dealing with his own feelings and kind of burgeoning realization that he's attracted to other guys. He watches the soccer team play, and he kind of feels fondly towards that. He's kind of in that moment of childhood. You also have Rebecca, who's kind of like getting a little bit older. She's kind of thinking about other guys that she's attracted to as well, but also kind of this moment of like, I really don't want to be in the backseat with my 2 little siblings, looking to kind of grow up and find a new moment. And Claire, as well, is kind of in this moment of trying to negotiate her spot in the world as well. She is kind of looking forward to getting Christmas presents of like cowboy guns and cowboy boots and those sorts of things, and kind of holding that wondering as she navigates being the youngest child in this group of folks.
Which I think is implied that the parents, that her request for Christmas presents being like cowboy guns and boots and hats is read by her parents as something that like boys would want.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that there's a gender non-conformity to Claire even at that age.
For sure. So this is all going on in the car on the way to church service and eventually to the grandparents' house for Christmas dinner. They arrive at a church service, the Unitarian Universalist church service, because this is an interfaith family. The father is Jewish and the mother is lapsed Catholic, and so they tried to find a service that they could all go to. So they went to the Unitarian Universalist church. A large service is had here, which involves a minister who's not the normal minister, kind of touring and being here and kind of doing a presentation on these wood carvings from the Japanese city Edo and the time period associated with that of these evocative wood carvings of various degrees of holiness, including at one point this kind of like holy sex that is happening, that he like brings into the conversation. The whole congregation is kind of like, what are we watching? are we at a church service or not? Certainly the husband says that and kind of wonders around that, but it's kind of an awakening moment for a number of the kids. They kind of see a broader world around faith. Certainly Stephen latches on to this moment. and kind of thinks about the kind of broader ramifications of church and the connection to the broader world around, and he kind of like latches on to Japanese culture, especially in this moment, which has some furtherings in the play as well. We then go to just a worthy of the worst Christmas dinners ever sorts of Christmas dinner. We go and they open presents together, and this is the scene where slowly the narrators don't say every line. Slowly the kids begin to have lines of their own, and they receive presents from the grandparents that are various degrees of kind of found presents that they have kind of rewrapped and given to them. And they receive presents. Eventually, the grandfather and the father go off into another room, and kind of talk about their disappointment in the world. There's a lot of disappointment in this whole scene. There's the father gives the mother the wrong sort of present. A vacuum
Gives
cleaner.
her a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, vacuum cleaner.
Hey, just a suggestion, friend. Those don't do that.
Don't do that. There's some other misses as well. Steven gets a soccer ball. Rebecca gets a journal, but Claire gets this like golden charm bracelet that her father gives her, which is also kind of a miss from Claire's perspective. But you hear the gasps from Rebecca and the mother as well, who are both like, "Oh, that's beautiful," and perhaps would have wanted a present like that as well. Notably, the father has given each of the children this sort of one gift to sort of in like set in what his relationship with them is. This all leads to kind of a drunken fight between the father and the grandfather, where some racial slurs are thrown at the father. They get into a physical fight that based around like money and finances and the way that the family operates, and the sort of knowledge that the grandfather has of some of the infidelity of or certainly the violence of the father.
And it's all kicked off because Claire and Steven kind of get in an argument about the bracelet that the father got, which is so wonderfully set up by Paula Vogel, how valuable it is, how special it is to the father, who calls Claire his golden girl, who, it's a very precious gift from the moment it comes out. So when they accidentally break it, it's one of those great storytelling moments where when it happens, you immediately go, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Because we know that the father is a volatile personality. We know that he has some emotionality invested in this gift. And so even when it happens before the explosion and the fight and everything, when the bracelet breaks and the kids are responsible for it, you just go, "Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Oh gosh, this is going to go so badly." And it does.
Yeah, it does. He kind of once he finds out that Steven is part of the fight around the bracelet, he kicks at Steven, and that kind of sets off the fight. He also calls him quote unquote pansy, which is kind of lets Steven know that he knows something more is going on with him, or at least that he thinks something more is going on with him. Big fight happens, including physical fight, and the family leaves and gets back into the car, and kind of in distraughtness heads back out into the storm. There's this, the tense silence of a post-fight, and then the mom says something to the effect of, "I'm super glad of the Christmas that you gave me," to the husband, and the husband moves to strike her. And we enter this sort of like slow motion scene that then splits out into a number of other scenes. This is when the kind of three children have these lines that stand out to them for their future. Rebecca has this kind of promise that she makes of, "I'm never going to have kids." And as soon as she says that, she breaks out of the puppet. Remember, they're all still puppets.
The children are still puppets. They're manipulated by these puppet actors who are supposed to be, even if you have other actors involved in manipulating puppets, there's like one per that's like the lead puppeteer. There's great videos online of many different productions, and this moment where the actor splits out of the puppet, they break away, is usually in a lot of the trailers because it's so physical and visual and evocative. Great powerful moment. It would require all of a director and puppeteer's blocking skill to achieve the kind of thing that you're looking for. If you can do it, it's just, even in the teaser trailers that I watch, I mean, just powerful, powerful
Yeah.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
They break out, the puppet is ripped away from them, and suddenly they are them as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe 20 some years or something like that later. Time has passed for them. And this happens for each of the characters. Just to try to get through the summary, I'll try to do them all next to each other here, just so that we can get into the conversation. But all three of the characters have these lines that they wish that they could, or that they speak into existence and thus break out of the chrysalis of their puppet. Rebecca's is this line about never having kids. Claire's is this kind of repeating over and over of if, because
And the phrase golden girl, I think,
mm-hmm.
becomes part of her next story.
For sure, for sure. And then Stephen has a I will never strike a woman like that. And one by one, each of them have these breakout scenes that they jump forward in time by a long time. Rebecca is on the street outside of her apartment after having been locked out of her apartment by her partner, longtime partner for sure, after he's discovered in her journal that she has cheated on him, and that she is pregnant, and that she has cheated on him and likely had the baby with like a friend of his while he was out of town. And so she's kind of calling up in the street, trying to get into the apartment, does not succeed. This is another notable moment of the puppet motif expanding, because the boyfriend is also a puppet in the kind of upper window of the apartment that she's calling up to. She is kind of left out on the street, tries to find her car, eventually like almost falls asleep, but is sort of saved by the ghost of Stephen.
Because it's like a really, really cold night.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think it seems like these are all in the winter as well, if not like another Christmas night. In fact, they are. They talk about the Feast of Stephen Day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So these are all that night, that same calendar date many, many years later, obviously. So it's very, very cold in the city where Rebecca is wandering around and falls asleep on a bench, which might, kill her at those temperatures.
Yep. And she is sort of in the stages of dying as a result of that when Stephen wakes her up, or the ghost of Stephen emerges.
The ghost of Stephen.
To be clear, the ghost of Stephen reemerges and wakes her up, gets her on her feet again, and she goes. Claire as well has a scene locked out of an apartment. She has followed her partner Naomi to another apartment, seen her go in where she knows that there's another woman there, and she's kind of ringing, trying to get in. And we go,
I think she calls it like a lesbian law student tryst.
Yep. And so she watches from the street as well as kind of this shadow puppet play happens on the floor above between these two shadow lesbian lovers.
At one moment, they're making out naked and holding law books.
Yeah.
They're like reading law books while making out naked.
Yep.
Very funny, very obviously represented something that's not realistic, that she's like imagining what they might be doing up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so she once again is kind of on the outside of that moment, even as she watches from below. And then Stephen has his breakout scene, which is also on the other side of a door. His lover, having cheated on him with a much younger man, keeps him locked out of the apartment, and he's eventually leaves the apartment and goes to a bar where he meets up with another guy. And in a pretty like explicit scene. In fact, the stage direction says this scene guarantees that this play will never be done in Texas.
Which is funny because it has been, as
Yeah.
I mentioned
Nice.
some in my
Yep. Haha.
but Austin,
Right, Austin is awesome. Way to go, Austin. What is a fairly explicit scene? He and the puppet have sex, which leads to him contracting AIDS as a result of this sexual encounter. And eventually, if you listen to our previous conversation, somewhat resonant with the previous conversation, he dies as a result of complications with AIDS. And becomes the ghost of Stephen, hence why there's a ghost Stephen around.
And then.
And then, if that were not enough complicating actions for this play, we pick up again into the events in the car, and there is this strike of the father, that the father hits the mother, and the car careens out of control. They go into the ditch, apparently very close to a creek. They're kind of teetering on the edge of a creek, and this kind of
Yeah. I don't think it's a ditch as much as it's like a cliff.
right, yeah.
They're like hanging off the edge of a, they've skidded on the ice to the edge of where the car may fall down into a ravine or a creek or something they would die.
Mm-hmm. And there is this like moment of wondering what's going to happen. Of will the father find a way to save them by backing the car out? Will he gun the engine and kind of send it off the edge? Because that's sort of a viable option for him at this point, given what's going on, all the secrets he's keeping, and the way that the family is. Notably, Claire wants to get out of the car. She's saying that she's trying to get out of the car. I'm going to get out of the car. The dad says, "Don't get out of the car." He tells the mom, "Do something with your daughter. Get her to not get out of the car." And she's like, "She's got to learn to make her own decisions." And then Stephen steps into the middle of this moment as Claire begins to freak out and almost try to get out of the car. Puppet Stephen again, reaches out hands to his sisters. And kind of forms this bond with the two of them that keeps them in the car, keeps them centered, and she doesn't get out.
Whatever the puppets are, they link arms somehow.
Yeah.
And that image is like the centerpiece image of the play.
Mm-hmm.
These 3 children puppets linking arms in the back seat of a car as they sit on the edge of life or death. Mm-hmm. Is the car going to careen into the abyss, or is it going to back onto the road?
The ghost of Stephen has this line, "And the fragile arms of the children linked, stretched and strained, and the thin strands of flesh did not break." And so they they hold on to each other, and slowly the car is brought back from the edge of the cliff. The group of them kind of survive this encounter of life and death, and just so many trauma moments from the night. But this one sort of is the kind of last of the traumatic moments, and they eventually get back on the road and head back into town together.
So they've had this moment of sort of, people talk about like those moments where you may have almost died and you sort of see life in a different way, in a I don't know, in a higher, different way. I don't know.
The stakes switch as a result of like nearly dying.
That's a great way to put it. Right now, it's not about whatever's going on between them. They're all of their lives are at risk in this moment. The parents have not really quite a reconciliation between them, but like almost of a something. And then the father goes back to thinking about Sheila, the affair. At one moment, right as they're sort of hanging on the edge of this road, Claire narrates again. So that one of the features of this play is that the characters sometimes narrate for themselves and sometimes narrate for each other. And they do that freely, without interruption, without complication. They just, whoever's going to narrate. So the actor playing Claire says this line of narration for some reason. "And in this moment, in the balance, our father bowed his head and prayed to a God he did not believe in." And then the male narrator who plays the father says, "God, let me start over. Let me take back this day."
Yeah.
So it's that kind of moment, right? Now, I want to go back just briefly because there is one moment that you skipped.
Ooh.
After the Stephen storyline. He talks about his death of AIDS. And then he describes this, I don't know, this spiritual thing where like once a year he is allowed to come back from the floating world. The floating world is a reference all the way back to that etching in wood carving Japanese art styling that the minister at the church was talking about. He brings up this idea, this art styling of the floating world. Stephen has apparently, it's lived in him his whole life. He becomes obsessed with Japanese culture and art stylings, etc., etc. So now that he's dead, the ghost of Stephen talks about being able to like come back once a year, and he checks in on his sisters. He checks in on their children. Apparently, Rebecca, although she was threatening that the man who threw her out to have an abortion, apparently she did have the child. Claire apparently goes on to have a child, checks in on them, checks in on their children. But in order to do that, he has to take breath from a beautiful man.
Yeah.
And there is this scene where the person who played the minister, who I think is now playing a different character, although that gets so nebulous and undefinable that I couldn't even begin to answer that question.
Yep.
He has this dance. He dances with Stephen. He dances. I'm just going to read a little bit of the stage directions. The minister dancer will dance for Stephen. I do not pretend to understand the Haishi Goto of no drama. It is unknown to me the back room. It is unknown to me as the back room of the bar. It is up to the director and the choreographer to interpret the Mai Goto for Western eyes, but let the dancer slowly, hypnotically come to life in the dance. As the dance progresses, let the ghost of Stephen become flesh. At the very end of this moment, the dancer takes the ghost of Stephen into his arms and pours his breath into his mouth. There's this whole description of how the ghosts or the dead apparently can see our breath as color and life. And then the ghost of Stephen says, he talks a little bit about that. He says, there's a moment I want you to watch with me, a moment of time stopping. You must come back in time with me now to the back seat of a car, a tired and rusty rambler that trudges in the ice and snow. Come back with me now, and perhaps you will see it. And then what he does, in what I can only describe as a moment that gave me goosebumps to even read, he takes the puppet of Stephen, the child puppet that he's been manipulating the whole show. And again, that dancer just breathed breath into him. He breathes breath into the puppet, and the puppet comes to life. If you're having a hard time imagining that, go look at some teaser trailers. You will find a clip of it. An actor holding this puppet, breathing into his mouth, and the puppet coming to life in his arms. It is chill-inducing.
Mm-hmm.
It is like a holy moment. It is, like we're talking about breath. Like, how many religious traditions in the world, have breath at the centerpiece of them? It is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that breath equals life, and that humanity. There's a line in there around like, the living have so much breath to give is the line, and so like,
yeah.
So you have this like dead, this ghost of Stephen, breathless, right, in death, that needs to go and find breath somewhere, from the living who don't know the gift of breath. And give it to a puppet, and bring us back into a moment. It's gorgeous.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And it's all like constructed.
Yeah.
Like none of this is like thinking about life and death and puppetries and mechanics and bodies that, like, Paula Vogel constructs this sequence of events that allows for this incredibly supernatural, holy, wonderful moment where he, as a man who dies of AIDS, breathes life into the thing that represents his child's body.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it pays off one more time. After all the thing, when they're in the car, the father pulls the car off. They don't die. They're all this moment of life and death. Here's the final beat of that. It's like 3 lines from the end of the play. Claire says, and when we were at last safely away from the edge, Rebecca says, as one family and one flesh, we breathed as one. And everybody in the car takes this deep breath that becomes the winter wind. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh. Yup. There's so many like gorgeous moments like that. Like and then following right up on that, there's the like stillness of the snow falling on them in that breathing together moment. I think the way that especially from the moment of the chrysalis breaking onward in this play is just like such a beautiful series of events that you
Yeah,
just feel like enraptured in.
What happens too is that by that point in the play, by the point that the car spins out of control and then the three adult actors break away from their puppets for these monologue scenes, essentially, where from each of them as an adult. At that point in the play, like I think my experience at least, I don't know if you share this, like I kind of thought I knew what was going on in this.
Right,
play.
yeah.
Right? Family plays. And I mean, this is American drama at its
play.
core. These are family plays,
Yeah.
deeply troubled human people in big conflicts. And Paula Vogel, in her infinite, beautiful theatrical storytelling, is like, let's do it with puppets.
Right.
And you're like,
Yeah.
great. Family play set at Christmas, deeply troubled human stuff with puppets. I get it. And then the car spins out of control and the adult actors break away from their puppets. And now they're living 20 some years in the future in these monologue scenes where both Rebecca and Claire might have died. And that's really what happens in Rebecca and Claire's stories. Rebecca might have just laid down in this dark night where she's pregnant after having told herself her whole life she'd never get children, being thrown out by her boyfriend, and she lays down on a bench and may very well just go to sleep and die.
Yeah.
And the ghost of Stephen, with his breath, the sound of his breath becomes the winter wind, wakes her up and sends her on her way. Claire, after this girl that she clearly was in love with, she calls her golden girl. And this girl found her own golden girl, has been left behind by this girl, goes, and I mean, it's fairly visceral and painful, puts a gun in her mouth. And the ghost of Stephen, with the sound of his breath in the winter wind, interrupts that and sends her on her way so she doesn't commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ghost of Stephen does die. I mean, Stephen does die by AIDS in his story. And so you have these three moments out of time from the future where Stephen, the ghost of Stephen, or whatever, however you want to try to pretend to make sense of that, saves his sisters. And then you go back to the car, and little puppet Stephen, I think the implication is, saves his family by putting his arms linked to his sisters so that they don't, in panic, throw open the doors of the car, upset the balance of the car, and send it careening down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know. Paula Vogel's, her ability to construct actions like that is so expert, so genius that like I get to the point where you describe those, you have a hard time even saying anything about them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that it flows necessarily from each revelation into the next one, and the degree to which, at least on paper, and maybe it is just that, look, we're such fans of this, but like at least on paper, you just want the more each time that there is more. Every time it's like, let me show you one more thing. It's like, oh, and you're drawn into it further as each new revelation, because there is like, there's as we sort of said initially, there's like each these there's a number of moments of trauma that you think are the climactic trauma, right? Like you think the strike is the moment of trauma, right? They remember this moment.
Right. Our conversation started by saying, like, what's different about today? They go to Christmas at their grandparents' every year is established.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to this church service on Christmas Eve, despite, as it seems like they imply they don't otherwise go to church. But they go to a church service on Christmas Eve, and they go to their grandparents on Christmas Day. Those two things are yearly traditions. So what's different about this one? And we started by saying, like, you think you know what's different about it several times over.
Right. Yeah. You think maybe, like, the minister is different. This is the queuing event that starts them all
It's
off.
literally a different minister.
Different minister. I think Sheila is at church, so I don't think this is their first time in the door. They have some relationship with.
That's true.
With, with the church, but like this minister is the different thing at church today.
And they do. The other thing we haven't mentioned about that is that, and I don't know how you would do this in the production of it. This is this is wild to me, but it's incredible. The pastor then brings in the children of the church, which
Yeah.
I guess are also puppets, or maybe they're also children. I don't know. And they're dressed in like Japanese clothing items, right? And they do the nativity scene, because he had talked about how, and this is true of cultures all over the world, represent the nativity from their own culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so they construct a nativity scene in Japanese dress, in traditional Japanese dress. And it's this miraculous, beautiful moment. Again, a moment that's just beautiful even to read.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very different, right? So what's different about the church service tonight? Minister.
Yep, for sure. Could be that. Could be the gift that is broken and the fight that ensues at Christmas. That's certainly.
Yeah, and that's the use of racial slurs and the breaking of that relationship feels like something that's a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they're driving to the grandparents' house, there's like there's subtle indications that's like they don't see these grandparents
Right.
other than this.
Yeah.
And I don't think the grandparents love the fact that their daughter married a Jewish man.
Yep. Mm-hmm. For sure. So there is that sort of like, this is a long time coming and will have long-standing ramifications as a result of what is finally said in this fight. So there's that one. Then there's probably the one that, like, you know, has a lot of weight when you're watching it, when the husband goes to strike the wife. And
it's given weight because it's repeated over and over in the show too.
And used as the chrysalis moment for these actors to burst out of the puppets and become human versions of themselves and enter sort of another strange expansion of the puppet theme, right? No longer are the main characters puppets. Instead, the peripheral characters are puppets. And so there's this kind of like transformation that happens there, which leads into this kind of like metaphysical story of Ghost of Stephen and his role in saving the family over the next 20 some years as he continues to try to like save them and be a part of their lives by kind of going around the world on the Feast of Stephen and finding breath. Lastly, there is this return back to the car and this moment of death or life, and one more saving act by Stephen. So there's like all of these moments where it could be what is different about today. There's like 6 things that are different about today. But I think that like slow down and the breathing together and the grabbing onto each other does focus us into that moment as like a big thing that changed for them.
Yeah, well, it's clear that the story is about a day that changes these children forever.
Yeah.
In some way. And what is it? The accumulation of these events? Is it the moment where they truly might have all died, and instead the family, you know, has this one moment at least of connected and togetherness, right? The line is one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
They were all together for one moment. That is so imperative. And I don't know, there's no real way to answer that question, but it is, I mean, it's just, it's hard to you read a play like this, you're like, oh my gosh, who could write this? only Paula Vogel.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the way it weaves this whole narrative together is stunning.
It's like I felt when I read, we're not talking about this because we already done it on the podcast, but it's like when I read Indecent for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That incredible play about the show that was, where got people arrested over and over. You read that Indecent, and you're like, oh my gosh, who could write this?
Yeah.
And only Paula Vogel could.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the way it weaves all sorts of theater elements together, we've got puppetry in here, we've got music that we haven't talked about at all because it's hard to talk about on the show, but but there's music underwoven throughout all of this. So many different forms of artistry brought to bear on this particular story about a family going to Christmas dinner. With so many beautiful moments in it, and there's as is always the case, but probably I think particularly for today, there are so many more moments we could zoom in on, and like if you were in the room with, would still be like glowing in you as you leave the theater. So alas, we are towards the end of our time on this particular podcast to talk about this show, but we'd love to kick the conversation out to all of you. If you have been in this play, read this play, seen this play anywhere, we'd love to keep chatting about it with you. You can find us on the socials. We are are at the username at @NoScriptPodcast. We also have a Gmail, noscriptpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on any of those sites. We'd love to keep talking about the long Christmas ride home with you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, any of our other conversations, first of all, come back. 2 more weeks of Paula Vogel Month coming your way. 2 more great Paula Vogel plays to discuss. Also, please recommend us to your family, your friends, anybody you know that likes these kinds of conversations. Theater, storytelling, writing, themes, characters. That's our thing. Send them our way. They can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places you get your podcasts, including Facebook, where you can like our page and a link to the new episode appears every Monday when we publish, including next Monday, when we're back with another great conversation about another great script. Till then, I'm Jacob here with Jackson. Thanks for joining us for No Script, the podcast.